Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered what it would truly feel like to live among the stars, not just to survive in a sterile, metallic capsule, but to truly thrive, to wake up surrounded by beauty, to feel a sense of peace and connection, even when you're millions of miles from home? For decades, our vision of space habitation has been dominated by function over feeling, clunky modules, blinking control panels, and the constant hum of life support systems. But what if the next chapter of human space exploration isn't just about engineering for survival, but about designing for the soul? Welcome to the revolutionary world of space architecture, where the mission is no longer just keeping astronauts alive, but helping them truly live. This is a field where walls don't just shield you from radiation, they respond to your emotional state. Where artificial windows don't just show a static starfield, they simulate a sunrise over an alpine lake if you're feeling homesick, or a gentle, rain-soaked forest if you need to unwind. We're talking about habitats that breathe with you, environments that learn your rhythms and nourish your spirit. This isn't a distant fantasy. It's the thrilling new reality being crafted by visionary architects and psychologists working hand in hand. In this video, we're going to journey beyond the blueprints and into the heart of what makes us human, exploring how light, texture, sound, and space itself are being harnessed to combat isolation, foster creativity, and nurture emotional resilience in the most extreme environments imaginable. You'll discover how colors are chosen not for aesthetics alone, but for their psychological impact on mood and circadian rhythms. You'll see how virtual nature and biophilic design are being integrated to stave off the sensory deprivation of deep space. And you'll meet the pioneers who believe that the ultimate challenge isn't just getting humans to Mars, it's making sure they arrive not as exhausted survivors, but as inspired explorers, emotionally whole and ready to build a new world. So settle in, open your mind, and get ready to see the future of living in space, and perhaps even on Earth, in a completely new light. To understand just how radical this new approach is, we need to look back at where we started. The very first space habitats weren't designed by architects at all. They were engineered by necessity. Think about those early capsules, like the one that carried Yuri Gagarin. It was a pressurized sphere, little more than a life support system with a window. Every single component, every wire, every switch served one overriding purpose: keeping a human being biologically alive in a vacuum. This philosophy continued for decades. The International Space Station, for all its incredible complexity, is fundamentally a collection of interconnected modules where function absolutely dictated form. The walls are covered in racks of equipment, cables, and handrails. The lighting is harsh and fluorescent, designed for task efficiency, not for warmth. There's a constant, inescapable mechanical hum from the ventilators and computers. For short missions, this is manageable. But when astronauts began spending 6 months or a year in this environment, the psychological toll became impossible to ignore. They reported something often called technological fatigue, a deep, wearying sense of being surrounded not by a home, but by a machine that required constant monitoring. The lack of sensory variation, the absence of nature, the inability to experience privacy or a true sense of personal space, these weren't just minor inconveniences. They were identified as genuine risks to mission success, potentially leading to decreased cognitive performance, interpersonal conflict, and depression. This was the pivotal moment. The engineering question of how do we keep them alive was finally joined by the psychological question of how do we help them thrive. This signaled a fundamental shift in priorities. We began to move away from the concept of a habitat as a hardened shell and toward the idea of a habitat as an active participant in well-being. It's the difference between building a submarine and designing a sanctuary. The submarine's only job is to keep the water out and the air in. The sanctuary's job is to make the people inside it feel safe, inspired, and truly human. This evolution marks a turning point not just in space exploration, but in our entire understanding of how our surroundings shape our minds. We stopped seeing psychology as a variable to be managed and started seeing it as a foundation to be built upon. So what exactly are these psychological pressures that make a simple, functional metal box so dangerously inadequate for long-term habitation? It starts with the sheer sensory monotony. On Earth, our brains are constantly processing a rich tapestry of subconscious information. The gentle rustle of leaves, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the subtle shift from a cool shadow into a warm patch of light, the distant sound of rain. These aren't just background noise, they are vital, calming cues that ground us in reality and time. Now, strip all of that away. In a traditional spacecraft, you are left with the constant, unwavering hum of machinery, the flat, shadowless glare of artificial lighting, and the same unchanging view of blank, utilitarian walls day after day, month after month. This sensory deprivation can be profoundly disorienting. Without external cues, our circadian rhythms can easily fall out of sync, leading to sleep disorders which then cascade into irritability and impaired judgment. But the challenge runs even deeper than that. There's the inescapable confinement, the knowledge that you cannot simply open a door and go for a walk to clear your head. Every argument, every moment of frustration happens within the same few square meters, with no physical outlet for release. This phenomenon is well documented in extreme analog environments right here on Earth. Studies of crews overwintering in Antarctic research stations or sailors on long submarine patrols show a clear pattern. In poorly designed spaces that are cluttered, lack visual interest, or offer no opportunity for personal retreat, stress levels skyrocket. Minor annoyances fester into major conflicts. A person's quirky habit, once endearing, becomes a source of intense agitation. We've all experienced a mild version of this, that feeling of being stir-crazy after a long weekend stuck indoors. Now amplify that feeling by 1,000 and stretch it out over 3 years for a mission to Mars. This isn't a hypothetical concern, it's a documented operational risk. The specter of what's often dramatized as space madness, a crew member experiencing a severe psychological break under the strain, is a very real nightmare scenario for mission planners. It's the ultimate demonstration that a spacecraft's most critical system might not be its oxygen generator or its heat shield, but its ability to serve as a psychological life raft. This is the fundamental reason why emotional design has shifted from a philosophical nice to have to a non-negotiable engineering requirement. It's the understanding that to keep a crew mentally well, you must actively design against despair. You must architect an environment that doesn't just sustain the body, but continuously nourishes the mind. This means intentionally weaving in sensory variety, creating opportunities for both social connection and private solitude, and providing a visual and auditory connection to the natural world we evolved with. The habitat must become a therapist, a sanctuary, and a home, all rolled into one. Failure to do so doesn't just risk an unhappy crew, it risks a failed mission. This profound need for psychological nourishment leads us directly to one of the most fascinating and vital tools in the space architect's new toolkit, biophilic design. It's a concept that sounds almost too simple for the high-tech void of space, yet it might be the most advanced system on the spacecraft. biophilia is the innate human tendency to seek connections with nature and other forms of life. Here on Earth, we've seen the benefits for decades. Hospital patients with a view of trees recover faster. Office workers with plants report higher well-being. But in space, this isn't a luxury. It's a non-negotiable life support system for the human spirit. When you are utterly severed from every natural ecosystem, when your entire world is a curated collection of alloys and polymers, the absence of life itself becomes a palpable, draining weight. Space architects are now intentionally weaving the essence of Earth back into the sterile void. Perhaps the most powerful example is the move beyond treating plants as just a food source in a greenhouse module and into integrating them as living, breathing architecture. Imagine an entire wall of the habitat not covered in instrument panels, but in a lush, vertical garden of edible greens and flowering vines. This isn't just a pantry, it's a dynamic, miniature ecosystem. The psychological impact is immense. The color green, so rare in the cosmic blackness, provides a visual respite for eyes tired of metallic grays and beiges. The scent of soil and growing plants, a fragrance we barely notice on Earth, becomes a powerful emotional anchor, a direct sensory link to home. The very act of tending to these plants, of caring for another living thing, provides a profound sense of purpose and routine that transcends mere maintenance duty. It's horticultural therapy on an interplanetary scale. But what about when you can't have a real window? This is where technology steps in to perform a kind of emotional magic. Instead of a blank wall, an entire section of the living quarters could be a high-resolution screen, but not one displaying data. It's an artificial window, and its programming is as carefully considered as any flight path. It might show a live, real-time view of Earth rotating slowly below, a breathtaking marble of blue and white, offering a direct visual connection to everything and everyone an astronaut has ever known, fighting the isolation of distance. Or if that view becomes too painful, a reminder of an impossible separation, the system could shift. At the command of a crew member feeling stressed or homesick, the wall could transform into a simulated window looking out onto a completely different, yet deeply familiar, scene. A sunrise over a misty forest, waves gently lapping at a sandy shore, or a quiet, rain-soaked street. These aren't random screensavers. They are carefully curated visual prescriptions designed to lower cortisol levels, evoke positive memories, and provide a moment of virtual escape. It's a technological bridge back to the natural rhythms our brains are evolutionarily wired to crave. The principles of biophilia extend even further into the very materials and forms that shape these space homes. The goal is to fight the monotony of right angles and hard, cold surfaces. Future habitats might feature panels with warm, wood-like textures grown from mycelium or other biomaterials, offering a tactile warmth that metal can never provide. Instead of sharp, engineered corners, walls might curve in soft, organic shapes that subconsciously feel safer and more welcoming, reminiscent of caves or natural shelters. Engineers are even experimenting with the incorporation of water in microgravity, not as a floating blob, but contained in mesmerizing, slowly moving sculptures or gentle misting systems that add humidity to the air and the soft, soothing sound of movement to the otherwise constant mechanical hum. Every one of these elements is a deliberate act of sensory enrichment, a small rebellion against the alien, and an intentional invocation of the familiar. This represents a fundamental and beautiful reversal of philosophy. We are no longer asking humans to adapt perfectly to the machine. We are now, finally, sculpting the machine to nurture the human. This multisensory philosophy represents a quantum leap beyond the old paradigm of simply giving astronauts something pretty to look at. It's an acknowledgement that our experience of the world, and our emotional stability within it is built upon a constant, subconscious stream of information from every one of our senses. To design for well-being in space is to become a composer of experience, orchestrating an entire environment to play upon our deepest biological and psychological harmonies. Let's start with sound, which is so much more than just noise. In a conventional module, the soundtrack of life is a relentless, monotonous symphony of mechanical necessity. The whir of fans, the click of relays, the hum of computers. This auditory backdrop, while a sign of a functioning ship, is also a persistent source of low-grade stress, a constant reminder of your fragile dependence on machinery. The new field of acoustic ecology within space architecture seeks not to eliminate these sounds, but to layer them with purpose. Advanced sound masking systems can generate adaptive soundscapes that are anything but random. Imagine a crew member preparing for sleep. Their personal sleeping pod might subtly begin to emanate the soft, rhythmic crash of distant ocean waves, its volume and tempo calibrated to slow their heart rate and encourage drowsiness, effectively drowning out the sharper, more alerting sounds of the ship's nocturnal operations. For another astronaut struggling with focus during a complex repair simulation, their workspace could be enveloped in the gentle, diffused sounds of a forest breeze, a proven aid for concentration and creative thinking. This isn't just playing nature sounds from a speaker. It's a dynamic, responsive auditory environment that actively contributes to cognitive performance and emotional regulation throughout the day. Then there is the profound importance of touch, a sense we profoundly underestimate until it is starved. In a world of smooth, cold, uniform metal and plastic, the nervous system can literally become understimulated, leading to a kind of tactile numbness that exacerbates feelings of detachment and isolation. Space architects are fighting this by intentionally designing for what's known as haptic diversity. This means every surface you interact with is an opportunity for sensory engagement. A handrail isn't just a polished aluminum tube. It might be wrapped in a material with a warm, slightly rough grain of reclaimed wood, grown from fungal mycelium, providing a comforting, earthy grip. A wall panel in a quiet alcove might have a section with a cool, smooth finish reminiscent of river stone, inviting a calming touch. Even the flooring underfoot could vary from springy, moss-like resilience in relaxation zones to a firmer, more supportive texture in work areas. These are not merely aesthetic choices. They are deliberate interventions that provide vital tactile feedback to the body, grounding an astronaut in their physical reality and stimulating the nervous system in a way that pure metal simply cannot. It's a constant, subtle reminder of a world with texture and variety, fighting the sensory monotony of the void. Perhaps the most direct line to our emotions, however, runs through our nose. Our sense of smell is uniquely hardwired, bypassing the thalamus to connect directly to the brain's limbic system, the seat of memory and emotion. This is why a single, unexpected scent can instantly transport you decades into the past. Space architects are now weaponizing this neurological superpower for good. Instead of the sterile, recycled air that has defined spaceflight, future habitats could employ micro-diffusion systems that release carefully curated, nano-encapsulated scents at precise times. The goal is to use aroma as a non-pharmaceutical tool for mood regulation. A morning alertness protocol might see the common area gently infused with the invigorating scent of citrus and peppermint. During a period of high team stress following a difficult mission update, the system might release the calming, familiar aroma of rain on dry earth petrichor to subconsciously lower tensions. For a crew member feeling particularly lonely, their private quarters could be filled with the comforting scent of baking bread or a specific floral fragrance that reminds them of home. This is olfactory design at its most sophisticated, using scent not to cover up odors, but to actively sculpt the emotional atmosphere of the habitat. And we cannot forget taste, the most intimate of the senses. The psychological drudgery of rehydrated meals and bland food paste is a well-known morale killer. The solution is to make nutrition a participatory, sensory-rich experience. Beyond the visual and psychological benefits of a green wall garden, the act of harvesting fresh basil, crisp lettuce, or even a single sun-warmed strawberry provides an unparalleled gustatory event. The explosive flavor and satisfying crunch of something grown right there in your home is a powerful antidote to the processed and the packaged. It reconnects the crew to the cycle of life and provides a shared, celebratory experience around meal preparation, turning a routine function into a cherished ritual of freshness and community. This holistic, five-sense approach fundamentally redefines the relationship between the astronaut and their craft. The habitat is no longer a passive container, but an active, adaptive partner in well-being. It hears your stress and responds with a calming soundscape. It feels your need for grounding and offers a textured surface. It senses a dip in morale and fills the air with an uplifting fragrance. It's a living, breathing extension of human consciousness, designed not just for survival, but for the flourishing of the soul. Now, if all of these sensory elements are the instruments in the orchestra of well-being, then artificial intelligence is the conductor, reading the emotional score of the crew and directing the entire habitat in a real-time symphony of support. This is where responsive design evolves into something truly profound, an environment that doesn't just sit there, but actively listens, learns, and adapts to your inner state. Imagine the walls themselves are not just panels, but attentive guardians, embedded with a network of discrete, non-invasive sensors. These aren't surveillance cameras in a dystopian sense. They are more like a collective nervous system for the habitat, designed with one purpose: to perceive subtle cues of human distress and respond with empathy. Sophisticated machine learning algorithms continuously analyze the biometric data flowing from wearable devices. A slight elevation in heart rate, a change in skin conductivity, while also parsing the subtle nuances of speech patterns for signs of fatigue or tension in a conversation. Even the micro-expressions that flash across a person's face in a fraction of a second can be read by advanced optical sensors, not to judge but to understand. Is that a frown of concentration over a complex task or a furrowed brow of building frustration? The system learns the difference. This constant, gentle monitoring allows the habitat to move from being reactive to being beautifully, intuitively predictive. It's the ultimate form of preventative psychological care. The AI might notice that a particular crew member's sleep quality and social engagement metrics always dip slightly during a specific 2-week period, a pattern that correlates with the time of year they typically took a vacation back on Earth. Recognizing this as a potential trigger for a low mood, the system doesn't wait for a problem to manifest. Instead, it proactively intervenes. As that crew member wakes up, the lighting in their quarters might simulate the golden, energizing glow of a morning in the Mediterranean rather than the standard cool white. Their schedule for the day could be quietly adjusted to include a recommended 30-minute virtual reality session hiking through a redwood forest, and the communal table might be set for a special, impromptu group meal featuring their favorite rehydrated dessert, subtly encouraging social reconnection. The habitat isn't just providing comfort, it's architecting moments of joy and connection based on a deep, learned understanding of the individual. This predictive capability becomes absolutely critical when dealing with one of the most daunting psychological hurdles of deep space travel: communication delay. On a journey to Mars, a simple question sent to a loved one on Earth could take 20 minutes to arrive and another 20 to get a response. This isn't a conversation, it's sending emotional postcards into a void. In these moments of profound isolation, the AI steps into a role that no human on Earth can fill, that of a readily available conversational partner. Using advanced natural language processing, the Habitat's interface can engage a lonely astronaut in a meaningful dialogue. This isn't a pre-programmed chatbot with scripted responses. This is a system that has absorbed the crew's personal histories, their interests, their sense of humor. It could propose a complex debate on the ethics of deep space exploration, tell a story tailored to the astronaut's known preferences, or even play the role of a supportive listener, asking thoughtful questions that help the person process their own feelings aloud. It provides cognitive stimulation and a semblance of social interaction when the real thing is millions of miles away, acting as a crucial buffer against the corrosive effects of loneliness. The true genius of this system, however, lies in its commitment to personalization. It understands that one person's perfect stress reliever is another person's annoyance. Over months and years, the AI builds a unique emotional profile for each resident. It learns that crew member A finds their focus in complete silence, while crew member B thrives with the ambient sound of a coffee shop. It knows that a blast of cool, blue-tinged light energizes one person, but makes another feel anxious. This deep learning allows the Habitat to tailor its interventions with astonishing precision, creating a living space that feels less like a machine and more like a deeply intuitive extension of the self. The goal is never to replace human camaraderie or the expertise of mission support psychologists on the ground. Instead, the AI acts as a first line of defense, a constant, calming presence that can de-escalate a negative emotional spiral before it even begins, ensuring that by the time a crew member sits down for their scheduled video therapy session with Earth, they are already in a stable, receptive headspace. It transforms the Habitat from a static set of rooms into a dynamic, caring partner in the most ambitious journey humanity has ever undertaken. Yet for all the sophistication of an AI-conducted environment, the most crucial ingredient for psychological well-being might be something far more fundamental: the human need for personal agency. After all, what good is a perfectly calibrated sensory experience if you have no say in it? In the extreme, regimented world of a spacecraft, where every minute of the day is often scheduled and every action is part of a procedure, a profound sense of helplessness can creep in. You are a passenger on a journey planned by thousands of people back on Earth, living inside a machine designed by committees. This loss of control is a direct threat to an individual's sense of self, their autonomy, and their overall mental resilience. The most visionary space architects understand this deeply. Their response is to deliberately design moments of choice and personal control back into the Habitat, transforming it from a rigid institution into a malleable home. This philosophy of personalization begins in the most private of spaces, the sleeping pod. In past designs, this was little more than a glorified closet with a sleeping bag velcroed to the wall. But in the new era of emotional design, the sleeping pod is recognized as a personal sanctuary, a critical retreat where an astronaut can truly recharge on their own terms. The lighting is fully tunable, allowing an individual to choose a cool, energizing blue spectrum for reading or a warm, sunset-like amber to signal to their body that it's time to wind down. The soundscape is not just something that happens to them, it's a library of options. One crew member might select the deep, resonant frequency of a Tibetan singing bowl to meditate, while their neighbor in the next pod might drift off to sleep to the synthesized, rhythmic pulse of a sound designed to mimic the feeling of being in a womb. the ultimate auditory security blanket. Even the virtual window is a personal canvas. While one astronaut might find comfort in the silent, majestic paths of the Milky Way, another might program theirs to display a looping video of a crackling fireplace in a rustic cabin, complete with the faint scent of pinewood smoke. This isn't about indulgence, it's about acknowledging that the path to restoration is deeply personal and giving astronauts the tools to find their own way there. This empowerment extends into the shared social spaces of the habitat, which are designed to be fluid and reconfigurable rather than fixed and immutable. Imagine walls and partitions on gentle tracks, allowing the crew to collectively decide the function of a room each day. In the morning, they might configure the main common area into an open plan, brightly lit work zone with multiple collaborative digital whiteboards for planning the day's experiments. By evening, those same partitions can be shifted to create a more intimate, theater-like arrangement for a movie night, with softer, indirect lighting and optimized acoustics. Later still, a single crew member might slide a partition to carve out a small, sound-dampened nook for an hour of completely private video calls home. This ability to literally reshape their social environment is incredibly powerful. It gives the crew collective control over their exposure to stimulation and social interaction, allowing them to create spaces for boisterous teamwork and quiet solitude as needed. It transforms them from passive occupants into active participants in the creation of their own community, fostering a sense of ownership and responsibility that is vital for long-term cohesion. Even the most routine act of eating is reimagined through this lens of personal agency. Gone is the concept of a one-size-fits-all rehydrated meal packet. Instead, the galley becomes a creative studio for food. Advanced food printers and personalized nutrient dispensers allow each crew member to have a significant say in their meals. The system might base its recommendations on real-time biometric data, suggesting a meal higher in specific vitamins or proteins if it detects a need, but the final choice always rests with the individual. Do you want your mushroom risotto to have a hint of lemon thyme or classic rosemary? Would you prefer the texture of your printed salmon to be more flaky or firm? Would you like the aroma of fresh-baked sourdough to be released as you eat your soup? These are micro choices, but their psychological impact is macro. They transform eating from a standardized refueling procedure into a sensory, expressive activity. It becomes a daily opportunity for creativity and a small but meaningful assertion of personal preference, a tiny rebellion against the monotony that screams, "I am not just an astronaut, I am a person with unique tastes." Ultimately, this relentless focus on customization and control addresses one of the most insidious psychological dangers of confined, long-duration travel, the erosion of identity. When every action is dictated and every environment is identical, people can start to feel like interchangeable cogs in a machine. But by providing countless opportunities, both big and small, for individuals to imprint their personality onto their surroundings, emotional architecture actively fights this homogenization. The habitat becomes a tapestry woven from the collective choices of its residents, a dynamic expression of the crew itself. It affirms that while they may be on a mission for all of humanity, they remain unique individuals whose preferences matter. This sustained sense of autonomy is not a luxury. It is the bedrock upon which mental fortitude is built, ensuring that when they finally reach their distant destination, they arrive not as passive passengers, but as empowered pioneers. But perhaps the most profound social challenge isn't about managing conflict or fostering friendship, it's about something far more fundamental: the architecture of memory and identity itself. On a multi-year mission to Mars, the crew will be living in a state of profound historical and cultural isolation. They will miss birthdays, holidays, the births of children, and the passing of elders. They will be absent for global events, both tragic and triumphant. The relentless forward momentum of life on Earth will continue without them, and over time, this separation can foster a terrifying sense of disconnection, as if they are becoming ghosts in their own former lives. Emotional architecture must therefore address this temporal rift, designing spaces that don't just connect crew members to each other in the present, but also tether them authentically to the world and the people they left behind. This goes far beyond a simple video call screen. Imagine a dedicated space within the habitat, a kind of memory sanctum. This wouldn't be a cold data bank, but a warm, immersive environment. One wall could be a dynamic, ever-evolving digital collage fed by loved ones on Earth. It's not just a social media feed, it's a curated stream of significance. A father on mission control could upload a video of his daughter's first wobbly bike ride the moment it happens. A best friend could send a panoramic photo from a favorite hiking trail in autumn with a note saying, "Wish you were here." The system could even integrate with public archives, allowing the crew to attend a significant cultural event, like a concert or a global celebration, through a high-fidelity, 360-degree recording, giving them a seat in the virtual crowd. This space becomes a living, breathing archive of their ongoing earthly lives, a ritual place to visit not out of duty, but for emotional sustenance, to feel the pull of gravity from the planet they call home. Furthermore, the habitat must also provide tools for the crew to build and document their own new history together. This is about crafting a shared identity as the first Martians. Dedicated recording studios, both for audio and video, would be standard issue, encouraging crew members to keep rich, detailed personal logs and create collaborative content. But the architecture would facilitate deeper rituals. A designated wall in the common area could be reserved for a physical mission patch or a handprint of every crew member, a growing tapestry of human presence. There might be a tradition of leaving a personal memento in a specific niche before a dangerous spacewalk, or a shared digital journal where entries are locked to be opened only on a future anniversary. These architecturally supported traditions create a new layer of culture and shared memory unique to their journey. They combat the existential fear of being forgotten by actively, continuously inscribing their story into the very fabric of their home. The habitat thus becomes a bridge across time and space, an anchor to the past they cherish, and a foundation for the future they are courageously building. It acknowledges that a human being is not just a collection of biological processes to be sustained, but a story that needs to be told, heard, and remembered. This final layer of emotional design ensures that when they finally return, they won't be strangers to their own planet or to themselves. They will return as whole people, their extraordinary experience fully integrated into the continuous narrative of their lives. Now, to truly grasp how these systems function as a form of emotional medicine, we need to understand the biological chaos they are designed to correct. Here on Earth, our bodies are masterfully conducted by an internal timekeeper known as the circadian rhythm, a roughly 24-hour cycle that governs everything from hormone release and body temperature to sleep-wake patterns and cognitive alertness. This internal maestro doesn't work in a vacuum. It takes its primary cue from the most powerful environmental signal we have, the daily rhythm of natural sunlight. The specific color, temperature, and intensity of daylight, from the soft pinkish hues of dawn to the bright, cool blue of midday to the deep, warm oranges of sunset, act as precise instructions for our biology, telling our brains when to produce wakefulness, promoting cortisol in the morning, and sleep-inducing melatonin at night. In the timeless environment of space, this entire symphony falls silent. with a sunrise and sunset occurring every 45 minutes in low Earth orbit, or with no true day or night at all on a deep space journey, that vital conductor is gone. The result is a kind of physiological mutiny. The body's carefully orchestrated cycles descend into dissonance, sleep patterns fracture, leading to exhaustion and impaired cognitive function. Hormonal balances are disrupted, affecting everything from immune response to appetite regulation. This internal disarray directly fuels irritability, depression, and a general decline in mental resilience, making a sophisticated lighting system not just about visibility, but about maintaining the very foundation of human health. The technological answer to this profound challenge is a masterpiece of bioengineering disguised as simple illumination. Modern circadian lighting systems are a universe away from the harsh, static fluorescent tubes of the past. They employ vast arrays of full-spectrum LEDs, capable of producing millions of distinct color combinations and intensities. But the genius isn't just in the hardware, it's in the programming. These systems are designed to replicate the nuanced, dynamic narrative of a full day on Earth, from first light to final darkness. The cycle might begin not with a sudden, jarring switch to bright light, but with a very gradual, almost imperceptible warm glow that mimics the first hint of dawn, gently signaling to the brain that it's time to slowly wind down the production of melatonin and prepare for wakefulness. Over the next hour, this light would progressively intensify and shift its color temperature towards the energizing, cool blue spectrum of a mid-morning sky, promoting alertness and focus perfectly timed for the start of the workday. As the afternoon progresses, the light would subtly warm again, easing the transition out of peak cognitive performance. Finally, as the crew's day winds down, the system would bathe the common areas in the deep, golden ambers and warm white of a long sunset, a clear biological signal that it's time to relax, socialize, and prepare the body for rest. In the sleeping quarters, the light would dim to a faint, reddish glow, a wavelength proven to have the least impact on melatonin production before fading to complete darkness. This entire 24-hour cycle is a continuous, silent conversation between the habitat and its inhabitants, a relentless effort to ground their biology in a comforting, familiar rhythm despite being utterly unmoored from its natural source. This environmental regulation is further refined through a deep respect for individual biological differences. The architecture acknowledges that not every human clock ticks to the exact same rhythm. We all have a natural predisposition or chronotype that makes us early birds or night owls. A one-size-fits-all lighting schedule, while better than nothing, would still leave some crew members struggling against their own nature. Therefore, the system incorporates a layer of personalization. Through wearable biometric monitors and even simple user input, the AI learns each astronaut's unique sleep-wake preferences and optimal performance windows. A night owl might have their personal quarters maintain a slightly darker, warmer light for a longer period in the morning, allowing their body to wake more naturally, while their morning lark colleague's space would be flooded with cool blue light right on schedule. The shared areas of the ship, however, would adhere to a crew consensus schedule for meals, meetings, and collaborative work, ensuring social cohesion. This elegant compromise allows each person to harmonize their personal rhythm with the collective rhythm of the mission, preventing the chronic sleep debt and social jet lag that can occur when we are forced to live permanently out of sync with our internal clocks. Beyond the daily cycle, these artificial skies also play a crucial role in marking the passage of longer periods of time, fighting the psychological phenomenon known as time dilation or temporal disorientation. On a mission lasting years with no changing seasons, no holidays marked by different light, and no natural environmental cues, days can blur into a featureless, monotonous stream. To counter this, the lighting programming can introduce subtle variations over weeks and months. The system could simulate the longer, brighter days of summer, with light lasting for 16 hours to promote activity and optimism, and then gradually shift to the shorter, dimmer days of winter, encouraging more introspection and rest. It could program special lighting events for holidays, perhaps a unique, soft multicolored glow for a cultural celebration like Christmas or Diwali, or a specific, meaningful palette for a crew member's birthday. These variations create a visual calendar in the sky of the habitat, providing a sense of progress through the mission and helping to anchor the crew in a simulated progression of time, which is vital for maintaining long-term morale and a sense of connection to the annual cycles they have left behind. Finally, this technology grants mission support and the habitat itself an incredibly powerful, non-pharmaceutical tool for immediate psychological intervention. Imagine the crew has just endured a particularly harrowing near miss with a micrometeoroid swarm or received difficult news from Earth. The collective mood is anxious, somber, and stressed. In such a critical moment, the psychologists on the ground could trigger an emergency mood elevation protocol through the lighting system. The artificial sky throughout the habitat could suddenly shift to the brilliantly bright, cool blue-white of a perfectly clear midday, a spectrum scientifically proven to boost alertness, elevate mood, and suppress melatonin, effectively tricking the brain into a state of heightened readiness and optimism. Conversely, if the crew is experiencing heightened tension and interpersonal conflict, the system could envelop the common areas in the deeply calming, warm light of a late autumn afternoon, a visual cue to slow down, lower voices, and seek connection. This ability to use light as a direct dial for tuning the emotional atmosphere of the entire crew is perhaps one of the most elegant and powerful examples of emotional architecture in action. It demonstrates a complete fusion of design and biology, where the very light you live under becomes an active, therapeutic participant in your well-being, ensuring that the internal environment of the human body remains as carefully managed as the external environment of the spacecraft. But even with the most advanced circadian lighting and responsive environments, the physical reality of a spacecraft remains undeniably finite. You are, after all, living inside a carefully engineered tube. No matter how well designed, walls eventually feel like walls. This fundamental limitation of physical space presents one of the most profound psychological hurdles: the risk of debilitating claustrophobia and the soul-crushing weight of sensory sameness over months and years. This is where emotional architecture makes its most audacious leap, using virtual and augmented reality not as mere entertainment, but as essential architectural elements that fundamentally redefine the very boundaries of the habitat. Think of it this way: if the physical structure is the skeleton of the home, then VR and AR are its infinitely malleable skin and atmosphere, capable of transforming a few square meters into a universe of experiences. The most direct application is pure virtual escape. An astronaut feeling the walls close in can simply don a high-fidelity headset and be instantly transported. This isn't just watching a video, it's about full sensory immersion. Haptic feedback suits can simulate the feeling of a gentle breeze on their skin or the crunch of gravel underfoot as they take a virtual walk along a rugged coastal path. Advanced olfactory emitters can release the precise scent of pine needles and damp earth as they explore a simulated redwood forest. The psychological impact of this cannot be overstated. It provides a complete cognitive reset, a genuine vacation for the mind without moving a single physical muscle. It's a powerful antidote to what astronauts call the breakfast effect, the monotony of waking up day after day in the exact same place, facing the exact same view. With VR, that view can be different every single morning. One day it might be a stroll through the bustling streets of Tokyo, the next a silent, meditative hike to the summit of Mount Fuji. This ability to command an immediate change of scenery is a profound assertion of control and a critical valve for releasing pent-up mental pressure. But the magic of this technology isn't confined to fully immersive experiences that require shutting out the real world. Augmented reality offers a more integrated, continuous layer of emotional support by superimposing a digital world onto the physical one. Through lightweight glasses or even projected systems, the sterile, metallic walls of the habitat cease to be static barriers. A blank wall in the galley could become a dynamic, interactive portal to a loved one's living room on Earth, making a video call feel less like looking at a screen and more like sharing a physical space. Another wall might transform into a vast digital canvas, allowing a crew member to paint with light or sculpt virtual clay as a form of expressive therapy. During a moment of downtime, an astronaut could sit in their cabin and use AR to overlay a field guide onto a real plant they are tending in their personal mini-garden, learning about its biology and history in an interactive, three-dimensional format. This transforms every surface from a limitation into a possibility, constantly seeding the environment with novelty, education, and emotional connection. Perhaps the most ingenious architectural application is the concept of the simulated window. Not every section of a spacecraft can have a real viewport; they are structural weak points. But with high-resolution screens or AR projections, any wall can become a window to anywhere. This isn't just a static image. One wall could display a real-time, telescopic view of Jupiter as the ship swings past, its swirling storms and moons rendered in breathtaking detail. Another might show a live feed from a rover trundling across the Martian surface, making the crew feel connected to their destination long before they arrive. And when the reality of the black, airless void outside becomes too stark or lonely, the system can shift again, offering a completely imaginative vista. Imagine looking out onto a serene, Earth-like planet with two moons hanging in a greenish sky, or a fantastical nebula glowing with impossible colors. These are not lies, they are therapeutic landscapes designed to inspire awe and wonder, emotions that are directly antagonistic to feelings of confinement and despair. They remind the crew that they are part of a grand, beautiful, and mysterious cosmos, not just trapped in a small metal box flying through it. This digital layer of architecture fundamentally changes the equation of confinement. It demonstrates that the most important space in a long-duration mission isn't just the physical volume enclosed by the hull. It's the perceptual and psychological space that technology can unlock within the human mind. By providing an infinite library of environments, experiences, and vistas, VR and AR become the ultimate tools for maintaining cognitive flexibility and emotional resilience. They ensure that while the body may be confined, the spirit remains utterly, gloriously free to explore. This profound shift in philosophy, from pure engineering to holistic well-being, finds its most tangible expression not in grand, sweeping gestures, but in the very surfaces we touch every day. For generations, the inside of a spacecraft was a symphony of cold, hard functionality. Aluminum alloy, titanium, fiberglass composites, and smooth, sterile plastics. These were the materials of choice, selected for their strength-to-weight ratios, their radiation-shielding properties, and their ease of sterilization. They were brilliant at keeping the vacuum of space at bay, but they created an environment that was, quite literally, cold to the touch. Every handrail, every wall panel, every console was a reminder that you were living inside a magnificent but utterly impersonal machine. Your fingertips, constantly searching for the comforting, varied textures of earth, the grain of wood, the cool smoothness of stone, the soft nap of fabric found only unyielding, uniform smoothness, or the harsh grip of anodized metal. This tactile monotony is more than just an aesthetic disappointment. It's a form of sensory deprivation that can subtly erode a person's sense of connection to a living world. Emotional architecture directly confronts this by treating every single surface as an opportunity for sensory engagement and comfort, sparking a revolution in material science where the performance metric isn't just tensile strength, but also its ability to feel like home. The goal is to create what designers call haptic diversity, a rich variety of tactile experiences that stimulate the nervous system in positive ways. This has led to the development of astonishingly advanced materials that serve a dual purpose. Imagine an antimicrobial fabric used for crew seating or privacy partitions. In the past, this would have been a stiff, crinkly, plastic-feeling vinyl. Now, it's a plush, breathable textile woven with natural fibers and infused with silver ions at a molecular level, feeling exactly like soft wool or dense cotton, but actively resisting microbial growth. Or consider a structural panel that, to the eye, looks like beautifully grained oak or rich walnut. In reality, it's an ultra-strong, fireproof composite material, but its surface has been engineered with microscopic ridges and valleys that perfectly mimic the warm, slightly rough texture of real wood. When an astronaut's hand rests on it, their brain doesn't register synthetic polymer. It registers wood, triggering the subconscious associations of warmth, nature, and craftsmanship that are so deeply missing in space. Even ceramic surfaces, long prized for their durability and ease of cleaning, are being reinvented. Instead of a perfectly uniform, glossy white finish, new space-rated ceramics are glazed with subtle, organic variations in color and a matte, slightly undulating texture that feels remarkably like weathered river stone underhand, providing a cool, calming point of contact throughout the day. The innovation goes even deeper, creating materials that are not just passive surfaces, but active participants in the sensory environment. Researchers are developing composites embedded with micro-encapsulated phase change materials. These tiny capsules contain essential oils or other natural compounds. The magic happens through the simple, everyday act of touch. The warmth from an astronaut's hand is enough to melt the outer shell of these microcapsules, releasing a minuscule amount of a calming scent like lavender or fresh linen directly onto their skin. It's a moment of multi-sensory delight. The act of pushing off from a wall to float down a corridor isn't just a physical action. It becomes a brief, personal aromatherapy session, a tiny gift of sensory pleasure embedded into the architecture itself. Other surfaces are designed to be visually dynamic. Special thermochromic or piezochromic pigments are being integrated into paints and polymers. These intelligent materials change color or reveal hidden patterns in response to body heat or gentle pressure. A handprint on a wall might temporarily leave a glowing, floral pattern that slowly fades over minutes. The flooring in a quiet nook might subtly darken in the spot where someone chooses to sit, visually marking their personal space and creating a living surface that acknowledges and responds to human presence. This transforms the habitat from a static set into a responsive partner, making the environment feel less like a machine and more like an extension of the crew's own living energy. This meticulous attention to detail extends underfoot as well, recognizing that the experience of mobility in microgravity is completely different, but the need for tactile variation remains critical. Flooring is no longer a one-type-fits-all solution. In work areas and around complex instrumentation, the flooring will be firmer, offering more resistance and a stable surface for astronauts to push against to perform precise tasks, preventing them from bouncing away with every movement. The texture here might be slightly more pronounced for grip, akin to a sturdy industrial mat, but in designated relaxation zones, private quarters, or a meditation space, the flooring is entirely different. Here, the materials are softer and more yielding. Advanced memory foam composites or pressurized gel systems are used to create a surface that gently gives way underfoot or when pushed against, providing a soft, almost buoyant sensation that is deeply calming. It's the architectural equivalent of the relief you feel kicking off stiff shoes and walking barefoot on soft grass, a small but vital tactile reward that signals to the body and mind that this is a place for rest and recovery, not work. Every one of these deliberate material choices, from the scent-releasing wall panel to the yielding floor, is a silent argument against the alienation of space. They are constant, subtle reminders that this environment was built not just for human survival, but for human feeling, weaving the comforts of Earth into the very fabric of the starship. Now, let's tune our ears to one of the most pervasive yet often overlooked challenges of living in a metal can hurtling through the void, the relentless, inescapable presence of noise. On a spacecraft, silence is a myth. Your world is filled with the perpetual hum of air circulators, the whir of computer cooling fans, the distant thrum of pumps cycling water through the life support system, and the sharp, percussive clicks of switches and relays. This isn't just background sound, it's a constant auditory assault that can fray nerves, disrupt sleep, and make private thought a rare commodity. In such an environment, the acoustic properties of the habitat aren't a minor design afterthought. They are a critical component of psychological survival. Emotional architecture approaches sound not as a problem to be silenced, but as a medium to be sculpted, creating an auditory environment that soothes rather than stresses and protects privacy without creating isolation. The first and most fundamental step is taming the hard, reflective surfaces that turn every sound into a jarring echo. Traditional spacecraft interiors, with their flat metal walls and hard composite panels, act like an acoustic hall of mirrors, bouncing noise around until it becomes a disorienting cacophony. The solution is a new generation of sound-absorbing panels, but these are a far cry from the bland foam tiles you might find in a recording studio. Space architects are designing these panels to be multi-sensory artifacts. They are molded into complex, organic shapes inspired by nature, the intricate, sound-diffusing patterns of a forest canopy, the fractal geometry of snowflakes, or the undulating forms of stalactites in a cave. These aren't arbitrary aesthetic choices. These complex shapes are engineered to break up sound waves with maximum efficiency, dramatically reducing reverberation time and the auditory fatigue that comes with it. But they also serve a vital visual purpose, transforming a purely functional element into a source of visual intrigue and natural beauty, a constant subtle reminder of the organic world. Beyond simply absorbing unwanted noise, the next layer of acoustic design is about actively curating the soundscape itself. This is where the technology becomes truly transformative. Consider the challenge of personal privacy in a shared, open volume. On the International Space Station, having a private phone call with family back on Earth requires putting on a headset and hoping for the best. Future habitats will employ sophisticated directional audio technology to create personal sound bubbles. Using arrays of precisely calibrated speakers and advanced wave field synthesis, the system can project a beam of sound so focused that it can be heard clearly only within a specific, small area like the spot where a single astronaut is floating. This means a crew member could listen to their favorite symphony or have an intimate, tearful conversation with their partner millions of miles away, all without needing headphones and without a single word being overheard by their colleagues just a few feet away. This isn't just a convenience, it's a revolutionary tool for maintaining personal sanity and emotional bonds across the vastness of space. For the ever-present background drone of machinery, the solution isn't elimination. That would be impossible and unsafe, as those sounds are the heartbeat of the ship. Instead, architects use a technique called acoustic masking. Strategically placed generators emit a soft, broadband sound, but not the harsh, static hiss of old-fashioned white noise. Instead, these systems produce a palette of carefully designed, naturalistic soundscapes. In a sleeping pod, the gentle, rhythmic pattern of ocean waves might be layered with a deep, resonant frequency known to promote delta wave sleep. In a work area, the sound could shift to a light, variable breeze rustling through leaves, a proven aid for sustained concentration. These engineered sounds are meticulously crafted to be less cognitively jarring than the sudden, unpredictable clunks and whirs of machinery, effectively painting over the stressful noise with an auditory blanket that the human brain finds inherently more calming and easier to ignore over long durations. Finally, all of this acoustic engineering is orchestrated through a principle known as acoustic zoning. The habitat is deliberately partitioned, not just with physical walls but with sonic boundaries. The sleeping quarters are designed as a true sanctuary of silence, with extra layers of insulation and sound-dampening materials to ensure that the vital rest of off-duty crew is never interrupted. Conversely, the social and galley areas are acoustically treated to encourage lively interaction and laughter. These spaces might actually have slightly more live acoustics to make conversation feel more energetic and engaging, but they are carefully buffered so that this social noise does not spill over into the quiet zones. This thoughtful auditory cartography ensures that the soundscape of the habitat always matches its function, allowing for both boisterous community and perfect, restorative peace to coexist just meters apart. It's a powerful demonstration that true comfort in extreme environments isn't just about what you see and touch, but also about what you hear, and more importantly, what you are allowed not to hear. Yet for all the power of sensory design and responsive technology, the most profound anchor to our humanity may be the simplest, the physical objects we choose to surround ourselves with. On a journey measured in years, the relentless forward momentum can create a terrifying sense of rootlessness, as if the threads connecting an astronaut to their own past are slowly fraying in the void. Emotional architecture confronts this existential risk head-on by moving beyond the concept of storage and into the sacred act of curation, designing the habitat not just as a living machine, but as a vessel for memory and a canvas for identity. This begins with the most intimate of galleries, personal display spaces. Gone are the days of a single, Velcro-backed family photo tucked beside a sleep station. Instead, the entire interior landscape is thoughtfully seeded with opportunities for personalization. Recessed niches with gentle, indirect lighting are built into walls at eye level, designed to hold and highlight a cherished object. Magnetic surfaces, not just on metal but on specially treated panels throughout the living quarters, allow residents to create evolving collages of physical photographs, children's drawings, ticket stubs from a favorite concert, or a small stone from a meaningful beach. These aren't mere decorations, they are vital visual touchstones. In a moment of stress or loneliness, the ability to reach out and physically touch a seashell from your honeymoon or the handwritten note from your child provides a tangible, irreplaceable connection to a reality that feels a million miles away. It's a direct rebuttal to the alienating sterility of the environment, a declaration that this person is more than their function. They are a parent, a partner, an artist, a dreamer, and their story is displayed here for all to see. This physical connection is powerfully augmented by the digital realm, which acts as a boundless archive for the memories that can't be carried in physical form. Imagine a sleek, frameless screen seamlessly integrated into the wall of a private quarters, more a portal than a picture frame. This isn't a static display, it's an intelligent memory system programmed by the astronaut and their family before launch. It can cycle through a deeply personal visual narrative, a video of a family dinner celebrating a birthday, a panoramic shot from a best friend's wedding, a slow-motion clip of the family dog running through autumn leaves. The system's intelligence lies in its subtlety. It might learn that a crew member always feels a dip in mood on a certain day of the week and respond by surfacing a specific, uplifting video from their personal collection, a clip of their child's first steps or a triumphant moment from their own past. It can even sync with feeds from Earth, so a new drawing made by a son or daughter that very day can appear on the display within hours, collapsing the immense distance into a moment of shared, immediate joy. This constant, dynamic flow of personal history ensures that memories don't fossilize into distant artifacts. They remain living, breathing parts of the daily emotional landscape, fighting the psychological distortion that can make life on Earth feel like a fading dream. But human identity is not built on individual memories alone. It is profoundly shaped by the shared rituals, beliefs, and traditions of our culture. A mission to Mars cannot ask people to check their spirituality at the airlock. Therefore, emotional architecture must make space for the soul. This means designing multifunctional areas that can be reconfigured for quiet contemplation, religious observance, or cultural celebration. These spaces are acoustically isolated, providing a true sanctuary of silence away from the ever-present hum of the ship. Adjustable lighting systems can be tuned to the specific needs of a ritual, from the soft, candle-like glow desired for meditation to the bright, clear light needed for reading sacred text. Lockable storage compartments are integrated into the walls, allowing crew members to safely keep ritual objects, a prayer rug, a set of meditation bells, a family heirloom used in ceremony, or symbols of their faith. The act of retrieving these items from their dedicated space and preparing the room is itself a ritual, a powerful psychological signal that one is transitioning from the profane world of work and machinery into a sacred space for connection and reflection. This architectural respect for diverse spiritual practices is a non-negotiable component of crew cohesion, acknowledging that inner peace is just as critical as physical safety for the success of a multi-year mission. Perhaps the most daily and therefore most powerful cultural ritual is the act of sharing a meal. Food is never just fuel, it is memory, comfort, and identity served on a plate. The galley in an emotionally designed habitat is therefore a kitchen, a laboratory, and a time machine. It is equipped not just for rehydration, but for creation. Advanced food printers can be loaded with custom cartridges of ingredients prepared by family members, allowing an astronaut to cook a dish that tastes startlingly like their grandmother's signature stew. Hydroponic gardens provide not just lettuce and tomatoes, but specific, culturally significant herbs and vegetables: basil for pesto, scallions for stir-fry, peppers for a traditional salsa. The process of preparing these foods becomes a collaborative, cross-cultural exchange. One crew member might share the technique for making their culture's flatbread, while another explains the significance of the spices in a cherished family curry recipe. These shared cooking sessions transform meal prep from a chore into a living anthropology lesson, a celebration of diversity, and a profound act of care. The smells that waft through the habitat, the sizzle of garlic, the earthy scent of cumin, the sweet aroma of baking are not just appetizing, they are the smells of home, of childhood, of belonging. They are a direct sensory missile against homogeneity, ensuring that the crew's cultural identities don't blur into a single, bland astronaut culture, but are instead actively preserved, shared, and celebrated as a source of strength and resilience. In this way, the very act of breaking bread becomes architecture for the soul, building a community not in spite of their differences, but because of them. Think about the last time you left a stressful day at the office and tried to immediately relax at home. That tension often follows you through the front door, coloring your evening. Now, magnify that 1,000-fold inside a sealed habitat millions of miles from Earth, where the office might be a high-stakes command center monitoring life support, and the home is just a few feet away, a sleeping pod where rest is critical for survival. In such an environment, you can't just flip a mental switch. This is why the most visionary space architects aren't just designing rooms, they are meticulously crafting the journeys between them. They understand that the emotional residue from one area can easily contaminate another, so they design the thresholds themselves to act as psychological airlocks, scrubbing away the stress of one mode of being before allowing entry into the next. This architecture of transition is a subtle but profound art, ensuring that the sanctuary of a sleep pod isn't undermined by the lingering adrenaline from the command deck. This process begins with the most fundamental of our senses, sight. The lighting in a spacecraft doesn't just change abruptly from a cold, alerting blue in a work module to a warm, sleepy amber in a living quarter. Such a jarring shift would be as disruptive as a loud alarm clock. Instead, the transition is a gradual, almost imperceptible narrative. As an astronaut floats from a brightly lit laboratory toward their private quarters, the corridor itself becomes a conductor of mood. The overhead LEDs might begin a slow, cinematic fade, shifting the color temperature by mere degrees per meter. The intense, focus-promoting cool white of the lab gives way to a more neutral, softer white, which then gradually warms into the golden hues that signal the brain to begin downshifting. This isn't a simple utilitarian path. It's a visual story of decompression, a silent, gentle coaxing of the nervous system away from the high-alert state of work and toward the calm required for rest and reflection. The architecture is quite literally setting the stage for the mental shift that needs to occur, but the preparation is multisensory. Just as the lighting tells a story, so do the materials under hand and foot. The transition zone's surfaces are designed for haptic signaling. The firm, grip-textured flooring of a work area, optimized for precise movement, might gradually give way to a slightly softer, more yielding composite material. A handrail might transition from cool, anodized metal to a warmer, wood-textured biopolymer. These subtle changes in touch provide constant, subconscious feedback, telling the body, you are leaving the world of tasks and entering a world of restoration. Even the acoustics play a crucial role. The ever-present hum of machinery, so dominant in technical zones, is actively filtered in these threshold corridors. Sophisticated sound dampening panels, often sculpted into organic, nature-inspired shapes, absorb the sharper, more alerting frequencies. They might be paired with gentle, adaptive sound masking that introduces the soft, rhythmic whisper of a breeze or a deep, resonant tone, effectively washing the auditory palette clean of work-related noise. This acoustic filtering ensures that an astronaut doesn't carry the clatter and clang of their work in their ears into their private space. For the most critical transitions, architects are designing dedicated decompression chambers. These are not large rooms, but intimate, cocoon-like spaces explicitly designed for a single purpose, ritualized psychological shedding. Imagine a small nook, perhaps no larger than a phone booth, situated between the high-intensity command module and the main living area. Before an astronaut can enter the social space, they are encouraged to spend just 60 seconds here. The space might guide them through a simple, automated ritual. A voice prompt suggests a series of 3 deep breaths accompanied by a stretching routine for the neck and shoulders, movements designed to physically release muscular tension held during a long watch. The walls could display a slow, flowing visualization of light that mimics the sinking sun, or a slow-motion video of leaves falling in a forest. This 1-minute ritual acts as a powerful psychological circuit breaker. It creates a deliberate pause, a mandatory moment of mindfulness that forces a cognitive disengagement from the demands of the workday. By the time the inner door opens to the living area, the crew member has not just changed location. They have actively transitioned their state of mind, leaving the stress of the command deck symbolically at the threshold. Some designs incorporate even more symbolic architectural gestures to mark these passages. A threshold might not be a simple doorway, but an archway modeled on the form of a stone arch found in nature, or a portal that frames the occupant in a specific spectrum of light as they pass through. The act of moving through this defined, symbolic structure becomes a conscious event, a self-aware moment of crossing from one world into another. It's the architectural equivalent of a meditation bell ringing, a tangible marker that signifies, I am now leaving my work self behind and entering my home self. This intentional demarcation helps to compartmentalize the different facets of life that are forced into such terrifyingly close proximity, preventing the emotional bleed that can so easily occur. The ultimate goal of all this meticulous design is to protect the emotional integrity of each dedicated zone. A sleep pod must remain a sacred sanctuary for rest, its purpose undiluted by the psychic energy of the laboratory next door. A command center must maintain an atmosphere of focused alertness, unpolluted by the languid calm of the living area. By architecting the transitions themselves, designers give astronauts the tools to manage their own psychological boundaries, ensuring that every space can fulfill its vital function. In the end, the journey through a spacecraft becomes a carefully choreographed dance of the senses, where the path you take is as therapeutic as the destination you seek. And just as every critical system on a spacecraft has a backup, a second oxygen generator, a redundant flight computer emotional architecture must be built with its own form of psychological redundancy. Because in an environment where you can't step outside for a breath of fresh air, a single point of emotional failure isn't just an inconvenience, it's a potentially mission-threatening risk. This philosophy moves beyond simply providing comfort and into the realm of creating a deeply resilient emotional safety net, woven into the very fabric of the habitat's design. It's an acknowledgement that human beings are not machines. Our needs fluctuate, our moods shift, and under sustained pressure, even the most well-designed primary system can feel insufficient. True psychological security, therefore, comes from having options, alternatives, and backups for the spirit. This is most clearly seen in the deliberate diversity of retreat spaces. A one-size-fits-all relaxation area would be a catastrophic design flaw. Instead, the habitat offers a portfolio of sanctuaries, each catering to a different emotional state or personality type. For the extrovert needing connection after a period of isolation, there might be an open, conversation pit-style area with comfortable, grouped seating designed for easy, buoyant social interaction. But just around the corner, accessible via a different corridor, could be a series of solitary nooks, small, cocoon-like pods with sound-dampening walls and a completely isolated life support hum, offering absolute sensory privacy for someone feeling overstimulated or simply in need of deep solitude. Further along, an active relaxation zone might feature a virtual reality rig for a vigorous session of simulated rock climbing or a zero-gravity yoga frame, channeling stress into physical exertion. In stark contrast, a passive meditation chamber would offer only a single, comfortable seat, a softly glowing orb that responds to breathe, and a viewport or screen programmed to display the serene, slow drift of deep space. This network of options ensures that no matter what kind of day an astronaut is having, there is always an architecturally appropriate place for them to recover, rebalance, and recharge on their own terms. This redundancy extends powerfully into the sensory systems themselves. Mission planners must consider the terrifying but real possibility of a power emergency, where energy must be diverted from non-essential systems to keep the crew biologically alive. In a traditional design, this would mean plunging the crew into darkness and near silence, surrounded only by the alarming emergency beacons and the groans of a straining ship, a scenario ripe for panic. An emotionally resilient habitat plans for this. Key areas are equipped with independent, battery-powered sensory units. Even if main power fails, soft, low-energy LED strips embedded in the baseboards can activate, maintaining a warm, calming glow that preserves the visual distinction between day and night cycles, preventing the circadian chaos that would compound the crisis. These backup units can also emit a steady, ultra-low-power resonant frequency or a simple, rhythmic sound pattern proven to reduce heart rate and anxiety. This ensures that during a mechanical emergency, the environment itself doesn't become a secondary source of psychological trauma. Instead, it continues to provide a baseline of sensory comfort and biological regulation, acting as a calm, steadying presence in the storm. The very layout of the habitat is also designed with conflict avoidance in mind, providing spatial solutions to interpersonal challenges, rather than a single, central corridor that forces constant interaction, a potential pressure cooker for simmering tensions. The design incorporates alternative circulation paths. If two crew members have had a disagreement, they shouldn't be forced into an awkward face-to-face encounter every time they move from their sleeping quarters to the laboratory. A well-designed habitat offers a choice, a main thoroughfare for normal times and a secondary, perhaps slightly longer, loop that allows individuals to gracefully avoid each other, granting them the space and time to cool down without the humiliation of having to visibly turn around or hide. This isn't about encouraging isolation. It's about providing the architectural grace notes that prevent minor friction from escalating into major conflict. It gives people autonomy over their social exposure, allowing them to manage their interactions in a healthy way. Finally, this philosophy of redundancy is applied to the very definition of recreation itself. Boredom and a lack of stimulating novelty are potent psychological toxins on a long-duration mission. The solution is to provide a rich and diverse menu of recreational options that cater to the full spectrum of human expression. This means having equipment for intense physical exercise, yes, but also well-stocked digital libraries for intellectual escapism, musical instruments for creative outlet, and advanced crafting tools like three-dimensional printers that can use recycled plastics to allow for artistic sculpture or practical invention. The goal is to provide multiple parallel avenues for stress relief and self-actualization. If someone grows tired of their workout routine, they can learn to play the keyboard. If they burn out on academic papers, they can start a project building a model of their hometown. This constant availability of alternative pursuits fights the mental stagnation that can lead to depression and apathy, ensuring that there is always a fresh challenge to undertake, a new skill to master, or a different form of joy to discover. This layered approach to well-being with backups for space, for senses, for movement, and for the mind transforms the habitat from a mere shelter into a psychologically antifragile environment, one that doesn't just withstand stress but is designed to help its inhabitants grow stronger because of it. This vision of a multi-generational starship community forces us to completely reimagine the very purpose of a wall, a corridor, or a window. It's no longer about housing individual astronauts for a 2-year mission. It's about cultivating an entire society from the ground up, designing an ecosystem where a toddler can take their first wobbly steps in microgravity at the same time their grandparent is finding new purpose and respect. The architecture must become a silent teacher, a gentle caregiver, and a masterful social conductor all at once. For the youngest members of this journey, the environment is their primary classroom and playground. This goes far beyond bolting a slide to a wall. Play areas are meticulously engineered to develop both body and mind in a world without gravity. Imagine soft, modular structures that can be reconfigured by the children themselves, encouraging creativity and problem-solving. These aren't just foam blocks, they are responsive panels that change color with touch or emit soft, musical tones when struck, turning physical play into a sensory symphony. Handholds and climbing grids are designed with varying levels of challenge, allowing a child to safely test their limits and build confidence in their movement, all while the surfaces themselves are made from warm, tactile materials that feel organic and inviting, not cold and industrial. Critically, these spaces are never isolated. They are visually and acoustically connected to adult work and social areas, often separated by transparent, sound-dampening partitions. This allows a parent preparing a nutrient solution in the botany lab to glance up and make eye contact with their playing child, maintaining that vital tether of security and connection. The architecture understands that a family cannot thrive if its members are compartmentalized. It must fluidly intertwine their lives, allowing for both independent exploration and the comforting certainty of a nearby loved one. For the older generation, design priorities shift profoundly towards accessibility, dignity, and continued contribution. The brutalist, utilitarian aesthetic of early spaceflight is completely abandoned. Corridors are wider to allow for easy passage, with handrails that are not just functional grips, but are ergonomically shaped to provide support and stability for arthritic hands. Flooring throughout common areas offers slightly more resistance, providing a more secure footing for those who may feel less confident in microgravity. Private quarters for elderly residents are equipped with advanced, voice-activated environmental controls, allowing them to effortlessly adjust lighting, temperature, and even call up a virtual window scene without struggling with complex interfaces. But the most sophisticated design element is the creation of meaningful social roles embedded into the architecture itself. A cozy nook near the main thoroughfare with exceptionally comfortable seating and a large interactive display might become the designated storyteller's corner, where an elder can share wisdom and history with curious children, their role as a keeper of knowledge literally built into the social fabric of the habitat. The community garden is designed with raised planters at a comfortable height for someone who may prefer to be seated, making them a vital curator of the living food system rather than a bystander. Every design choice silently affirms their value, ensuring that aging in space is not a process of diminishing capability, but a transition into a different, equally crucial form of citizenship. The true magic of this intergenerational design, however, happens in the intentionally crafted common spaces that act as the community's beating heart. This is where age segregation is architecturally forbidden. The main dining hall isn't a sterile mess hall with rows of tables. It's arranged like a vibrant town square with a central food preparation area that encourages gathering and conversation. Large communal tables are mixed with smaller, more intimate booths, allowing for a choice between boisterous group meals and quiet family dinners, all within the same energizing space. Entertainment zones are designed for multi-generational appeal. A large view screen for movie nights is surrounded by tiered, cushioned seating that allows a grandparent to sit at the back with a clear view while grandchildren sprawl on soft mats in the front, all sharing the same experience. Perhaps one wall is a permanent interactive art installation where a child's finger painting in one corner can seamlessly blend into a grandparent's more intricate digital sculpture in another, creating a living tapestry of shared creativity that belongs to everyone. The circulation paths themselves are designed to create what urban planners call forced collisions, gentle, natural convergences where different generations must mix. The path from the play area to the science lab might naturally pass through the quiet reading garden, ensuring that the energy of youth periodically animates the spaces of contemplation. This constant, casual interaction is the bedrock of a healthy community, preventing the formation of isolated silos where the young only understand the young and the old only relate to the old. It fosters empathy, dissolves stereotypes, and creates a society where wisdom is passed down naturally and new ideas bubble up freely, all because the architecture itself was built to encourage connection over mere convenience. This ensures the settlement is more than a collection of specialists. It becomes a true civilization, resilient, adaptable, and deeply human. Yet for all its potential to heal and comfort, this deeply responsive architecture forces us to confront a series of profound and unsettling ethical dilemmas. We must ask ourselves, at what point does a nurturing environment become a surveillant one? Where is the line between supportive design and subtle manipulation? The very systems designed to safeguard mental well-being could, if implemented without rigorous ethical guardrails, become instruments of control that erode the very autonomy they are meant to protect. This conversation moves us beyond engineering and psychology and directly into the realm of philosophy and human rights, because a home that can read your emotions must also respect your right to have them remain private. The core of the issue lies in data, specifically the most intimate data imaginable. In a traditional home, your stress level, your moments of sadness, your sleep patterns are your own private business. But in a smart habitat, your elevated heart rate, your restless pacing, the subtle tremor in your voice during a conversation, these become data points, streams of information fed into an algorithm that then decides how to adjust your world. The first and most critical ethical imperative is radical transparency and explicit consent. Astronauts cannot be passive subjects in their own environment. They must be its informed governors. This means every single sensor, every data-gathering device must have its purpose clearly explained. Residents need a simple, intuitive dashboard, a kind of emotional control panel that shows them in real time exactly what data is being collected. Heart rate elevated, speech pattern indicates fatigue, time spent in social zone has decreased by 20%. More importantly, this pattern must grant absolute granular control. A crew member must be able to easily toggle off specific types of monitoring. They should be able to say, "You can monitor my sleep quality to adjust the lighting, but you cannot use my speech patterns to infer my mood." This isn't just a privacy setting. It's a fundamental assertion of bodily and emotional autonomy in a world where the very walls have ears. This leads directly to the non-negotiable need for a literal and unequivocal off switch. There must be a hardwired, always accessible command that severs the link between the monitoring systems and the responsive elements of the habitat. Engaging this command wouldn't plunge the crew into danger. Critical life support monitoring would continue. but it would disable all the adaptive psychological systems. The lights would default to a neutral, standardized setting. The soundscapes would fall silent. The scent diffusers would shut down. The habitat would become, for all intents and purposes, a beautifully designed but dumb machine. The right to experience an unmediated, unanalyzed, and unoptimized environment is a profound human need. Sometimes you don't want an algorithm to try and cheer you up. You need the dignity to sit with a perfectly legitimate bad mood in peace, without a system interpreting your sadness as a problem to be solved. This right to disconnect is the ultimate safeguard against the habitat becoming an overbearing, paternalistic presence that insists it knows what's best for you better than you do. It returns ultimate agency to the human, ensuring the technology remains a tool for well-being, not a director of it. The potential for manipulation is perhaps the most insidious ethical challenge. Consider a scenario where mission control on Earth, reviewing biometric data, decides the crew's morale is too low for optimal performance. Could they remotely trigger a mandatory optimism protocol, flooding the habitat with stimulating light and energizing scents without the crew's knowledge or consent? Or what if the system itself, programmed to maximize harmony, detects a heated debate and automatically adjusts the lighting to a calming amber and releases a tranquilizing scent to chemically pacify the disagreement, effectively short-circuiting unnecessary and healthy conflict? This moves beyond support into the territory of behavioral modification, where the environment is no longer responding to your needs but actively shaping your behavior to fit a predetermined model of optimal functioning. The ethical design principle here must be one of alignment, not override. The system's goal should be to create conditions conducive to well-being, like providing a quiet space for a difficult conversation, not to forcibly engineer the outcome of that conversation itself. All interventions must be transparent and contestable. If the habitat makes an adjustment, it should quietly notify the residents, "I've softened the lighting and reduced auditory stimuli as biometric indicators suggest elevated stress levels." Click here to revert these changes. This transforms the interaction from a covert manipulation into a collaborative dialogue between the human and their home. These concerns become exponentially more critical when considering vulnerable states or individuals. During periods of extreme fatigue, grief, or after a traumatic incident, a person's capacity for clear judgment is impaired. This is precisely when a well-intentioned system could be most invasive or overbearing. Ethical protocols must therefore include preset, user-defined boundaries. Before a mission, each astronaut would work with psychologists to establish their own ethical profile. They could set hard limits: never play audio of my family's voices without my explicit command, or never adjust my sleeping pod's environment based on data from another crew member's biometrics. These pre-arranged preferences act as a covenant between the individual and the AI, ensuring that even when someone is at their most vulnerable, the system's actions remain bound by their earlier Chinese letter consent. This is the heart of responsible emotional architecture, a commitment to technological capability that is always, and in every instance, subordinate to the inviolable principles of human dignity, informed consent, and self-determination. It ensures that the home of the future is a sanctuary for the spirit, not a laboratory for the human experiment. The Lunar Gateway Station represents a monumental leap forward, moving these principles from the drawing board into the cold, hard reality of orbital construction. It's the first major habitat where emotional well-being wasn't an afterthought bolted onto an existing engineering framework, but a primary design parameter woven into its very DNA from day one. This isn't just a space station, It's a full-scale laboratory for the human spirit in deep space, a proving ground for every concept we've discussed. Each module, every surface, and all its systems are being crafted with a dual purpose: to withstand the merciless vacuum outside and to nurture the fragile, complex humanity within. Consider the profound shift embodied in the private crew quarters. Gone is the glorified closet with a sleeping bag. Instead, each astronaut receives a true personal sanctuary, a volume of space dedicated entirely to their individuality. The centerpiece is an advanced, fully tunable circadian lighting array, but its programming is deeply personal. Before launch, each crew member works with psychologists to design their ideal daily light cycle, anchored by a wake-up sequence that is uniquely theirs. For an astronaut from the Pacific Northwest, this might mean a painfully slow, 30-minute simulation of a misty dawn over Puget Sound, the light gradually shifting from a deep indigo to a soft, watery gray, and finally to a cool, energizing silver. For someone from the Arizona desert, their alarm might be the intense, brilliant gold of a sun blazing over red rock formations, flooding their pod with warmth from the first moment of consciousness. This isn't about vanity, it's a powerful, daily reaffirmation of identity. It's the architecture whispering a personal good morning, a direct and visceral connection to the world they've chosen to leave behind, ensuring they never feel completely divorced from it. The station's common areas are engineered as engines of communal recovery, with the multi-sensory relaxation dome standing as its crown jewel. This isn't a simple room with a video screen, it's an immersive experiential chamber. Imagine floating into this softly contoured space and selecting Alpine Meadow from a menu. Instantly, high-fidelity projectors bathe the curved walls in a 360-degree view of wildflowers swaying under a vast blue sky. But the experience goes far beyond sight. The floor and walls subtly vibrate with a deep, resonant frequency that mimics the feeling of the Earth itself, a sensation profoundly missing in microgravity. The temperature drops a few degrees, carrying the crisp, thin chill of mountain air, while hidden dispensers release the complex scent of sun-warmed pine needles and damp soil. The sound system doesn't just play a recording of a forest, it creates a spatially accurate soundscape. You hear the chirp of a specific bird off to your left, the buzz of a bee passing close by your right ear, and the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze that seems to move through the room. This is therapy through total environmental substitution, a complete cognitive reset that can combat sensory monotony and recharge a crew's collective emotional batteries in under 30 minutes. Even the most utilitarian spaces have been reimagined through this lens of psychological support. The galley, often a starkly functional area, is now a hub of sensory comfort. It incorporates micro-diffusion systems that release targeted aromatherapy, scents keyed to meal times, the invigorating smell of citrus and fresh coffee to kickstart the morning shift, the comforting, savory aroma of roasting herbs and garlic to signal the end of the workday and the beginning of communal relaxation. The lighting above the food preparation stations is fully customizable, allowing the crew to choose a bright, clean white for precise cooking tasks or a warm, dimmable amber to create a cozy, intimate atmosphere for shared meals. This transforms eating from a mechanical refueling process into a cherished, multi-sensory ritual that reinforces social bonds and provides a predictable, comforting anchor in the unstructured flow of a day in orbit. Perhaps most critically, the station's entire layout is a masterclass in psychological zoning. High-stress operational modules, bristling with monitors and the constant chatter of mission control, are acoustically and visually isolated from the living and recovery quarters. The connecting nodes between these zones are not mere passageways. They are deliberately designed transition spaces. As an astronaut floats from the intense focus of the command module toward their quarters, the lighting in the corridor begins a gradual, automatic shift. The cool, alerting blue-white spectrum of the work area slowly warms into neutral tones, and then finally into the soft, golden hues that signal the brain to begin downshifting. The sound of humming machinery is actively filtered and replaced by a gentle, calming resonance. This architectural journey forces a mental decompression, scrubbing away the adrenaline and cognitive load of the workday before one ever reaches the sanctuary of their private pod. It's a physical manifestation of the commute home, a necessary ritual to separate the professional self from the personal self, when both must exist within the same few hundred cubic meters. The Lunar Gateway stands as irrefutable proof that the future of space exploration is not just about building better machines, but about crafting better homes for the humans who will live within them. But this careful orchestration of light and sound would be incomplete without its visual counterpart, the silent yet profoundly powerful language of color. Within the confined metal walls of a spacecraft, color is never merely decorative. It is a vital, non-pharmaceutical tool for regulating mood, focus, and even the body's internal clock. The stark, utilitarian grays and beiges of past missions are being replaced by a sophisticated palette where every hue is chosen not for its trendiness, but for its specific psychological impact, transforming the habitat into a visual instrument for well-being. The most dominant colors in this new spectrum are the cool, serene tones of blues and greens, which are strategically deployed in sleeping quarters and dedicated relaxation zones. These colors are scientifically proven to lower heart rate and blood pressure, triggering a parasympathetic nervous system response that tells the body it is safe to rest and recover. They are not chosen at random, they are a direct visual echo of our evolutionary home. A soft, muted blue subconsciously recalls the expansive, peaceful sky on a clear day, while a gentle sage green connects us to the calming presence of a lush forest. This is biophilic design operating at its most fundamental level, using color to provide a constant, comforting reminder of the natural world that is so desperately missing, effectively bathing the astronauts in a visual sedative that counteracts the latent stress of their environment. In stark contrast, the areas dedicated to work and high-concentration tasks employ a completely different color strategy. Here, the palette shifts to warmer, energizing tones. Soft yellows and warm, neutral whites take precedence, chosen for their ability to stimulate mental activity and promote alertness. This is a far cry from the aggressive, cool blue glare of old fluorescent lights, which was excellent for visibility but terrible for sustained comfort, often leading to eye strain and a subtle, underlying anxiety. The new workspaces use color temperature to create an environment of focused optimism. The yellow undertones are reminiscent of morning sunlight, naturally encouraging the brain into a state of ready engagement without the jarring intensity that can lead to burnout over a 12-hour shift. This careful calibration ensures that the crew can maintain peak cognitive performance for complex problem solving, while their environment actively works to keep frustration and mental fatigue at bay. Even social interaction is architecturally encouraged through color. The common areas, like the galley and dining spaces, often feature carefully measured accents of warmer reds and oranges. These are colors of vitality and connection, known to stimulate conversation and appetite, making shared meals feel more festive and communal. However, in the confined volume of a habitat, such potent colors must be used with extreme precision. A wall painted a bright, overwhelming red could easily increase heart rates to a point of agitation rather than friendly engagement. Therefore, these warmer tones are never used on large, uninterrupted surfaces. Instead, they appear as strategic accents in the fabric of seat cushions, as a backing in open shelving, or as a subtle pattern in a floor mat. This allows the color to provide its psychological boost of energy and sociability without risking sensory overload, creating a visual warmth that makes the space feel more inviting and alive. Perhaps most surprisingly, the intentional and strategic use of pure white is also a critical part of this psychological toolkit. In an environment that is often bustling with visual information from monitors, labels, and equipment, the mind can crave visual rest. Certain areas, particularly small meditation nooks or personal reflection spaces, might be designed almost entirely in a soft, matte white. This absence of color provides a visual palette cleanser, a minimalist sanctuary where the eyes and the mind can find relief from the constant stimulation of a typically colorful and busy spacecraft. It's a space for mental reset, where the sheer lack of visual clutter allows for deeper introspection and a feeling of expansive calm, proving that sometimes the most powerful color statement is the deliberate choice to use none at all. The overall application is never a matter of simply painting entire modules a single color. The most effective designs use gradients, where a color might deepen or lighten gradually across a wall, creating a sense of visual movement and depth that fights the monotony of flat surfaces. They use combinations, placing a small, vibrant accent against a field of calming blue to create a point of interest without causing chaos. This nuanced, painterly approach demonstrates a maturity in design where every square inch of the habitat is considered for its emotional potential, ensuring the visual environment is always working in concert with the lighting, sound, and materials to actively build a foundation of psychological resilience. But perhaps the most profound design challenge isn't just adapting to a single gravity environment, it's creating emotional architecture that feels authentically supportive across the wildly different gravitational realities we'll encounter, from the total weightlessness of transit to the gentle pull of the moon and the distinct lighter sway of Mars. This concept, known as gravity-differentiated design, forces architects to think not in terms of a single perfect solution, but in a fluid language of form that speaks directly to both the body and the mind in each specific context. In the zero-gravity environment of a spacecraft, every single design decision is reimagined through the lens of fluid motion. The cold, utilitarian grab bars of the past are being replaced by structures that feel more like organic extensions of the body itself. Imagine handholds that aren't straight, clinical poles, but warmly textured forms that curve and flow like branches on a tree, inviting a natural grip and making the act of pulling oneself through a module feel less like operating machinery and more like a playful, almost dance-like interaction with the environment. These pathways are carefully orchestrated to feel intuitive, with gentle gradients of color or subtle lighting guiding movement in a way that feels effortless and even joyful, transforming daily navigation from a chore into a graceful experience. This philosophy extends to the very concept of surface and space. In a world without up or down, the traditional hierarchy of floor, wall, and ceiling completely dissolves. A surface that one moment is a floor for walking becomes a wall for leaning against, and then a ceiling for looking up at. Emotional architecture seizes this opportunity, designing each of these surfaces with a different psychological purpose in mind. The surface most often used for sleeping might be softly textured and painted in a deep, calming indigo to promote rest, even if it's oriented vertically relative to another module. Another surface, perhaps one that frequently serves as a gathering point for meals, could be warmer in tone and feature a constellation of small, embedded lights that mimic the cozy intimacy of a candlelit dinner, reinforcing social connection. This approach acknowledges that in microgravity, comfort is not found in a single orientation, but in a harmonious relationship with the entire surrounding volume, where every plane is an opportunity for engagement and emotional resonance. When we transition to a place like Mars with its gravitational pull of roughly 1/3 of Earth's, the design challenges shift yet again. Here, the goal is to create an environment that feels naturally supportive rather than perpetually awkward or unsettling. Habitats can't simply be copies of Earth buildings. Their proportions need to be tuned to this new reality. Ceilings might be designed slightly higher to account for the exhilarating, loping gait that partial gravity allows, making movement feel buoyant and free rather than confined. Staircases transform into gentle, ramped inclines with shallower steps, facilitating a flowing motion that feels natural to the Martian body. Even the placement of windows is reconsidered. A horizontal window strip placed at the height where one's gaze naturally falls while moving in this new gate can provide a constant, comforting connection to the outside landscape, anchoring the occupant and preventing a sense of disorientation. Every element is calibrated to make the human form feel perfectly suited to its new world, eliminating the constant subconscious struggle against an environment that feels just slightly off. This meticulous calibration is perhaps most evident in the design of furniture and objects, which must be completely rethought from first principles. A chair on Mars isn't just for sitting, it's an anchor. Without the constant downward pull of Earth's gravity, traditional seating is useless. Instead, designers are creating secure yet comfortable embrace-like forms that gently hold an occupant in place using a combination of subtle contours, soft restraints, and tactile materials that feel inviting rather than restrictive. The act of sitting down becomes one of being welcomed and supported. Similarly, storage solutions abandon the concept of shelves and doors that rely on gravity to stay closed. Instead, we see intelligent systems of soft, magnetic pouches, elastic nets, and touch latch compartments that feel intuitive to access, transforming the daily frustration of searching for a tool into a satisfying interaction. A chef in the galley doesn't fight with a drawer. They press a panel and a curated array of utensils swings gracefully into reach, feeling less like storage and more like the environment itself is anticipating their need. This gravity-aware design ensures that the immense psychological comfort of a well-organized, accessible home is maintained, even when the fundamental rules of physics have been rewritten. It's a silent promise that in this new world, you will not feel like a clumsy visitor, but a graceful and capable resident. This extraordinary vision of bio-integrated habitats represents the final, breathtaking frontier of emotional space architecture, a future where our living environments are not just responsive machines, but truly alive, breathing extensions of our own biology. We are moving beyond simply building shelters and into the realm of cultivating ecosystems that grow, adapt, and feel alongside us. Imagine a wall in your quarters that is not a passive panel, but a living tapestry woven from genetically modified ivy. This is no ordinary plant. Its leaves are embedded with biosensors that can detect the subtle chemical signatures of your emotional state. The cortisol you exhale when stressed, the specific pheromones of calm you release when content. In response, this living wall doesn't just sit there, it communicates. When it senses your anxiety, specific leaves might slowly flush a deep, calming indigo, while simultaneously releasing a targeted mist of lavender and chamomile essential oils from its delicate flowers. It's not a machine reading a data point. It's a symbiotic organism engaging in a silent, biological dialogue with you, offering comfort through a language of color and scent that feels fundamentally more natural and profound than any digital notification ever could. This biological integration goes far beyond decorative plants. the most radical concepts involve reimagining the entire life support system as a living, sentient partner. Picture air purification not through noisy, mechanical filters, but through vast, beautiful lung walls teeming with millions of specially engineered microorganisms. These tiny organisms do more than just scrub carbon dioxide. They are programmed to organize themselves into complex, flowing patterns that are both functional and mesmerizingly beautiful. As they process the air, their collective movements create a slowly shifting, abstract mural, a living kaleidoscope that provides a point of visual meditation and a constant, reassuring reminder that the very air you breathe is actively alive and working in harmony with you. The constant, gentle hum of machinery is replaced by the profound, silent hum of biological processes, connecting you to the fundamental pulse of life itself and erasing the alienating feeling of being sealed inside a sterile machine. The very structure of these future habitats could be grown, not built. Pioneering research is already exploring the use of fungal mycelium as a primary building material. Imagine a habitat framework that is literally cultivated in space from a base substrate, growing into pre-designed shapes that are incredibly strong, lightweight, and self-healing. This mycelial infrastructure would feel warm and slightly yielding to the touch, with a soft, earthy scent, a world away from the cold, hard feel of aluminum alloys. But it could be far more than just an inert material. We could engineer it to be responsive. Networks of mycelium are known to transmit electrical signals, creating a kind of natural neural network throughout the walls of the home. This living structure could sense pressure, temperature, and even the presence of its inhabitants, potentially regulating airflow or redirecting nutrient solutions to where they are most needed, all through its own biological intelligence. Your home would possess a quiet, vegetative consciousness, a gentle awareness that makes it feel less like a possession and more like a partner in your survival. This represents the ultimate synthesis, the complete dissolution of the line between the natural environment and the built one. We are no longer trying to simulate Earth or paste a veneer of nature onto a mechanical core. Instead, we are learning the language of biology itself and using it to write a new chapter for human existence in space. This approach points towards something far more ambitious than mere comfort. It suggests a future where we don't bring a piece of Earth with us, but learn to cultivate entirely new forms of living space, unique ecosystems co-created by human ingenuity and the ancient, adaptable intelligence of life. The habitat ceases to be a separate entity and becomes a seamless extension of the human ecosystem, a true second skin for humanity as we step out into the cosmos. This fundamental shift in design philosophy demands a parallel revolution in education. You can't simply take a traditional aerospace engineer and hand them a textbook on psychology. You need to cultivate a new kind of professional, a hybrid thinker fluent in the languages of structural integrity and emotional well-being. The emerging curriculum for space architects is therefore a radical fusion of disciplines that were once kept in separate academic silos. Imagine a single course where students are tasked with calculating the load-bearing capacity of a carbon composite beam in the morning, and in the afternoon, they are analyzing fMRI scans to understand how that same beam's curvature and surface texture might subconsciously influence a sense of security or anxiety in the occupant. This is not a superficial pairing, it's a deep integration where every technical decision is interrogated for its human impact. Students learn to read a stress-strain curve and a cortisol level chart with equal fluency, understanding that both are critical metrics for mission success. They study the principles of structural resonance not just to avoid catastrophic failure, but to ensure the low-frequency hum of the ship falls within a spectrum that is calming rather than agitating to the human nervous system. This new generation of architect is taught that a well-designed joint is one that doesn't just hold two pieces of metal together, but also helps hold a human psyche together under unimaginable pressure. This theoretical fusion is brought to life through brutally immersive practical experiences. Before they are ever allowed to design a habitat for others, students must become their own test subjects. They spend days or even weeks living in analog habitats claustrophobic, mock-up modules buried in deserts or submerged in research stations, where every design flaw they've committed is viscerally revealed. A student who specified a slightly too small diameter for a connecting tunnel now feels the daily claustrophobia of scraping their shoulders. Another who prioritized equipment access panels over personal space now experiences the grating irritation of never having a single square meter free from blinking lights and bundled cables. They wear biometric monitors that record their heart rate variability, their sleep patterns, and their cortisol levels, creating a direct, undeniable data stream that links their emotional state to their own design choices. This isn't just an exercise, it's a forced cultivation of empathy. They learn that a poorly placed vent creating a constant draft on the back of the neck isn't a minor oversight. It's a source of low-grade, persistent annoyance that can erode patience over months. They discover that a lack of visual privacy isn't just an inconvenience. It's a fundamental assault on an individual's need for autonomy and retreat. This first-hand suffering is the most effective teacher, transforming abstract principles of psychological well-being into an uncompromising design imperative written in the language of personal experience. Underpinning every technical lesson and immersive trial is a rigorous and constant ethical dialogue. The power to design an environment that can actively shape emotions is a profound responsibility, and the curriculum ensures students are never allowed to see it as merely a technical challenge. They engage in heated seminars debating the line between supportive design and subtle manipulation. Is it ethical for a habitat's AI to detect rising stress biomarkers and automatically dim the lights and release a calming scent? Or does every intervention require explicit, conscious consent from the crew? How much emotional data is it acceptable to collect on individuals in the name of optimizing their environment? And who ultimately owns that data? Students are forced to role-play scenarios. You are a mission architect, and ground control wants you to implement a covert harmony protocol that uses subliminal auditory cues to reduce interpersonal conflict during a high-stress period. Do you comply? These discussions are not hypothetical. They are training for the real-world dilemmas these architects will face. The goal is to graduate professionals who are not just technically brilliant and psychologically insightful, but also ethically robust, understanding that their primary duty is not to the efficiency of the mission, but to the dignity and autonomy of the people living within their creations. They emerge as a new breed of pioneer, part engineer, part psychologist, part artist, and wholly dedicated to the idea that the ultimate purpose of technology is not to conquer space, but to make it a place where humanity can not only survive, but truly and joyfully thrive. So how do we translate these profound psychological and biological needs into a physical reality that can withstand the rigors of space? The answer lies in a fundamentally new way of creating, one that moves far beyond the old model of engineers designing a ship and then asking humans to adapt to it. The most successful and genuinely human-centered space habitats are not created in isolation by any single discipline. They are born from a deeply collaborative, almost symphonic process that brings together three essential voices from the very first sketch. Architects, psychologists, and the astronauts themselves form a core triad, each contributing a unique and irreplaceable perspective to the design. This isn't a linear handoff where one group does their part and passes it along. It's a continuous, iterative dialogue where the lived experience of spaceflight, the scientific understanding of the mind, and the practical realities of construction are in constant conversation. The astronauts bring the raw, unfiltered truth of life in extreme confinement. They are the only ones who can articulate the subtle, cumulative impact of a design choice that looks perfect on paper. A former astronaut might point out that a particular handhold, while perfectly positioned for efficiency, is made of a material that becomes uncomfortably cold to the touch, creating a small but persistent source of stress every time it's used. They can describe the profound psychological difference between having a single, central gathering area and having the option to float down a slightly longer, quieter secondary corridor to avoid a colleague after a tense discussion. Their insights are priceless because they are not theoretical. They are forged in the reality of months spent living in a machine. They know that the ability to physically turn a manual valve on a water reclamation system, to feel a direct tactile connection to the life-giving machinery, can provide a deeper sense of agency and purpose than simply monitoring an automated process on a screen. They understand that a small, unexpected luxury like a textured panel that feels like sandstone or a private drawer with a magnetic latch that makes a satisfying click can provide a disproportionate boost to morale, offering a moment of sensory pleasure and a small victory over the pervasive sterility. Psychologists enter this collaboration with the crucial framework of empirical research and theoretical principles, while the astronaut provides the specific, anecdotal evidence of what did happen. The psychologist can explain the underlying why and help extrapolate those lessons into universal design guidelines. They bring knowledge from analogous environments on Earth, studies of Antarctic winter over crews, submarine personnel, and even remote mining outposts that reveal predictable patterns of human behavior under stress, sensory deprivation, and prolonged isolation. They can translate a general principle, like the human need for prospect and refuge, the desire to be able to see out prospect while feeling secure and sheltered refuge, into a specific architectural feature, a recessed nook with a large viewport, offering a commanding view of the cosmos while providing a sense of enclosed safety. They help the team understand the cognitive load of certain color schemes, the impact of acoustics on concentration, and the vital importance of designing for both social bonding and opportunities for complete solitude. Their role is to ensure that the design isn't just based on a handful of individual preferences, but is grounded in a robust scientific understanding of human psychology. The architect then becomes the crucial synthesizer and translator, the one who must take these often contradictory streams of input, the visceral experience of the astronaut, the data-driven recommendations of the psychologist, and the unyielding constraints of physics, radiation shielding, and mass budgets, and weave them into a coherent, buildable, and beautiful whole. This is where the true artistry of emotional space architecture emerges. It's not about choosing one priority over another, but about finding ingenious solutions that satisfy multiple needs simultaneously. A structural beam cannot be moved, but its surface can be coated in a warm, wood-textured biopolymer that provides both radiation shielding and a comforting tactile experience. The need for equipment access panels can be met by designing them with elegant, symmetrical patterns that integrate seamlessly into the wall, turning a functional necessity into a visually pleasing element rather than an eyesore. The architect's challenge is to make the necessary feel intentional and the practical feel poetic. This intense collaboration frequently leads to solutions that seem counterintuitive from a purely engineering perspective. For instance, the team might advocate for intentionally designing a slightly less efficient pathway between two modules. A direct route might save seconds of transit time, but a pathway that takes a gentle, curving detour past a green wall or a small viewport provides a moment of visual variety and mental refreshment, a micro-vacation that pays dividends in cognitive restoration over the course of a long mission. Similarly, the group might champion the inclusion of certain manual overrides or mechanical systems alongside advanced automation. The act of physically turning a dial or engaging a lever provides tangible feedback and a sense of direct control that can be deeply reassuring, combating the helplessness that can come from being a passenger in a highly automated environment. These aren't inefficiencies, they are carefully calculated investments in human performance and well-being, justified by the collective wisdom of the triad. The final design that emerges from this process feels profoundly different because it is not a compromise, but a true integration. It has a wisdom baked into its very walls, a wisdom that comes from listening to the human heart with the same intensity as the laws of physics. This evolution in design demands an equally sophisticated revolution in measurement. We can no longer rely solely on the traditional metrics of architecture and engineering structural integrity, thermal efficiency, mass budgets, to judge the success of a space habitat. A module could be perfectly sound physically yet be a psychological pressure cooker for its inhabitants. The new frontier of emotional architecture requires a completely new set of tools, a dashboard of well-being that quantifies the health of the human spirit with the same precision we measure oxygen levels or radiation exposure. This isn't about soft, subjective opinions. It's about developing hard, empirical data that proves which designs truly work and which ones merely look good on a blueprint. The entire field is shifting from artistic intuition toward a rigorous, evidence-based practice, and it's generating some of the most fascinating data ever collected on the human condition. The process begins long before a crew ever sets foot inside a new habitat with extensive pre-occupancy psychological baselining. Each astronaut undergoes a battery of assessments that map their cognitive patterns, stress resilience, default mood states, and social interaction styles. This creates a detailed psychological fingerprint for every individual. Then, once they are living in the designed environment, these assessments are repeated at regular intervals post-occupancy evaluations that track the subtle, cumulative impact of their surroundings. Standardized psychometric scales measure changes in anxiety, depression, and overall life satisfaction. Sleep studies, conducted with advanced wearable technology, don't just track duration but depth and restorative quality, directly linking a restless night to a poorly tuned circadian lighting system or an uncomforting acoustic environment. Sociometric badges, which analyze speech patterns and social proximity, provide a stunningly detailed map of group dynamics, revealing whether the habitat's layout is encouraging healthy collaboration or fostering isolated cliques. This before and after data is invaluable, transforming anecdotal feelings of "this place feels good" into quantifiable evidence that a specific curved wall or a particular shade of blue in the common area correlates with a measurable 15% drop in self-reported stress levels and a 20% increase in spontaneous social interaction. But what people report and what their bodies are actually experiencing can sometimes be two different things. This is where objective biometric monitoring becomes absolutely essential. During simulated missions in analog habitats on Earth, crews are wired with a suite of non-invasive sensors that act as a constant, unbiased witness to their physiological state. A lightweight wristband tracks heart rate variability, a powerful indicator of autonomic nervous system balance, while a sleek headset monitors brainwave patterns for signs of focused engagement or distracted fatigue. Even a simple thermal camera can detect minute fluctuations in facial blood flow, a reliable proxy for emotional arousal. The true power of this approach is revealed in targeted experiments. Designers can introduce a single variable, perhaps changing the lighting from a static cool white to a dynamic sunset simulating sequence, and watch the biometric data in real time. They might see collective heart rates synchronize and slow down, or a noticeable shift in brain waves toward a more relaxed alpha-dominant state. This allows them to draw a direct causal line between a specific architectural intervention and a physiological outcome, moving beyond correlation to something much closer to proof. It tells them not just that people say they feel calmer, but that their bodies are objectively, measurably being calmed by the design. With this wealth of human data in hand, architects can then perform a radical new kind of analysis on the architectural elements themselves. They are developing what might be called emotional efficiency metrics. This involves a cold, hard calculation that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. What is the psychological benefit per kilogram of mass, per kilowatt of energy, or per cubic meter of volume? Is a massive, real water feature, which requires huge amounts of weight in water and complex recycling systems, providing 10 times the emotional benefit of a high-resolution screen showing a loop of a babbling brook, which weighs almost nothing? Or does the multi-sensory authenticity of real, moving water justify its immense cost? Perhaps a vertical garden wall of living plants provides not only a psychological boost, but also a tangible air purification and food production benefit, giving it a tremendously high emotional efficiency score that justifies its inclusion. These calculations force incredibly difficult but necessary trade-offs, ensuring that every single gram launched into space is pulling its weight not just physically, but emotionally. It transforms design decisions from philosophical debates into optimization problems, with human well-being as the key variable to be maximized. The most valuable insights, however, are only revealed by the relentless passage of time. The initial novelty of any environment eventually wears off, and the true, enduring value of a design feature is shown in its long-term performance. This is why longitudinal studies are the crown jewels of emotional architecture evaluation. Researchers follow crews across years, not months, meticulously tracking which elements continue to provide solace and which ones fade into the background, becoming invisible or even irritating. A virtual window offering a stunning view of Earth might be a profound source of comfort for the first 6 months, but after a year, some crew members might report that it starts to induce a painful sense of longing and isolation. Conversely, a seemingly simple design choice, like the specific, slightly yielding texture of the handhold in a main corridor, might show no significant short-term impact, but over 2 years, the data could reveal it is consistently associated with lower physiological stress markers during daily transit. It becomes a silent, reliable workhorse of well-being. This long-term perspective is crucial for designing habitats for multi-year missions to Mars and beyond, where the environment must provide sustained support without causing aesthetic or sensory fatigue. It helps identify the timeless design principles like haptic diversity, acoustic zoning, and personalizable spaces that form the enduring foundation of a true home, no matter how far from Earth that home may be. This rigorous, multifaceted process of evaluation is what ultimately transforms beautiful ideas into life support systems for the soul. Ultimately, the work of space architects is forcing a complete and total redefinition of their entire profession. For millennia, the primary purpose of architecture has been to provide shelter, to create a barrier between us and the outside world, protecting our fragile bodies from the elements. This was a noble and essential goal, but the new frontier demands something far more profound. It's no longer enough to just keep the vacuum out and the air in. The new mandate is to actively nurture the human spirit inside, to architect environments that don't just sustain biological life, but that actively promote psychological flourishing under the most extreme duress imaginable. This is a shift from building shells to cultivating ecosystems for well-being, where every wall, every sound, and every photon of light is a carefully considered participant in the emotional life of the inhabitants. It recognizes that a habitat's most critical system isn't its oxygen generator, it's its ability to function as a psychological life raft, a guardian of mental resilience on a journey where turning back is not an option. The beautiful and perhaps unexpected consequence of this cosmic endeavor is that its greatest gifts are not reserved for astronauts alone. Every single innovation, every hard-won lesson about human psychology in confinement is already beginning to filter back down to Earth, where it holds the power to revolutionize our own built environment. Imagine the hospital room of the future, informed by circadian lighting research from deep space missions, where the artificial sky above a patient's bed mimics the natural progression of a day, regulating their sleep-wake cycle and reducing delirium to accelerate healing. Picture long-haul submarine crews or scientists in Antarctic research stations, whose living quarters are now being redesigned with acoustic zoning and personalized sensory niches to combat the documented psychological toll of extreme isolation. Even our own homes stand to be transformed. The principles of biophilic design, haptic diversity, and responsive environments are finding their way into urban apartments and suburban dwellings, helping to combat the sensory deprivation of modern life and create domestic spaces that truly restore us after a demanding day. The challenges of space have given us a powerful new lens through which to view design on Earth, proving that the principles of emotional well-being are universal, whether you're orbiting Mars or simply trying to find peace in a bustling city. This leads us to the most profound and humbling realization of all. In our desperate search for solutions to survive the otherworldly hostility of space, we have inadvertently stumbled upon a blueprint for what humanity needs to thrive anywhere. The very pillars of emotional space architecture, a deep and constant connection to nature, even if simulated, a genuine sense of personal agency and control over one's environment, strong, architecturally supported communities, and a rich, varied sensory diet are not exotic luxuries. They are fundamental, non-negotiable requirements for human well-being. They are what we have been missing in our sterile, fluorescent-lit offices, our noisy and impersonal hospitals, and our often isolating urban landscapes. The great irony and the great hope is that by looking outward, we have been forced to look inward, to rediscover the core conditions that allow our species to flourish. We went searching for the technology to conquer the stars and found instead a deeper understanding of ourselves. And so, the future of space exploration becomes about so much more than rockets and rovers. It becomes a grand, compassionate project of carrying the very best of humanity with us into the cosmos. It is about ensuring that when we finally set foot on distant worlds, we arrive not as hardened, emotionally depleted survivors, but as whole, inspired, and deeply connected explorers. We are learning to build not just structures, but sanctuaries for the soul, places where wonder can still flourish in the infinite black, where loneliness is held at bay by designed connection, and where the human heart, in all its complexity, is recognized as the most precious cargo on the ship. This journey promises to yield more than scientific discovery. It offers a profound legacy of wisdom for life on our own planet, reminding us that the ultimate destination of any great exploration is always a deeper understanding of home. But this entire conversation leads us to a question that is as personal as it is profound. We've explored the principles, the psychology, and the incredible technology, but design is ultimately about human choice. If you were given the immense responsibility of planning a long-duration mission, which single emotional need would you prioritize above all others in the habitat's design? Would your top priority be creating spaces for absolute solitude and private reflection, a sanctuary where an individual can retreat from the intense social pressure of a small crew? Or would you argue that fostering unbreakable community bonds is more critical, designing the entire habitat to encourage spontaneous interaction, shared meals, and collaborative activities to prevent the isolation that can fracture a team from within? Perhaps you believe the most vital element is a constant, tangible connection to Earth through immersive virtual windows, real-time feeds from home, and a living archive of personal memories to fight the profound sense of disconnection and loneliness. Or maybe you'd focus on the primal need for sensory richness, investing heavily in varied textures, dynamic lighting, and curated soundscapes to combat the sterile monotony that can grind down the human spirit over time. There is no single right answer, only a fascinating spectrum of human priorities. We would genuinely love to hear your perspective in the comments below. Tell us which concept resonated most deeply with you and why. Your insights are a valuable part of this ongoing conversation about our future among the stars. If this vision of a more human-centered future in space inspires you, consider subscribing to our channel and tapping the notification bell. We are constantly exploring the cutting edge where technology and humanity intersect, investigating how innovation is reshaping every aspect of our experience, from the cities we live in to the far reaches of the cosmos we one day hope to call home. Join us for our next exploration as we continue to investigate tomorrow's possibilities.